Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, also known as Wolf, and with me, as always, is Sal.
Oh, yeah. Here I am. Glad to see y'all folks, or actually be here with you.
You can't see them.
I see a wall.
You're looking at the wall. That's pretty much what you're seeing.
It's white, wait, black. I don't know.
So,
maybe I'm hallucinating.
So we got the email address.
Awesome. Wait a minute. Which one do we put first? One or the other, or does it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter.
All right.
That's wolfman88@gmail.com and
wolfandsal@gmail.com. Send us your stories, folks. We want to hear them. We want to put them on the air, and we'll write them out, and we'll get to it as fast as we can.
One of the things we're going to talk about today, or most of the things we're going to talk about today, are going to be cryptids from the water.
Yeah,
we have gotten lots of requests, people asking about, and that's one thing we don't have a whole lot of are stories, but I do have a few about stories from water cryptids over the past few months since we talked about that creature in Galveston, which I want to talk to our guest today about that too.
Definitely.
His name is Scott Mardis. Scott he's in a few groups. One of them is Zombie Plesiosaurs Society. Scott has done a lot of research on water. I would call them water. What would you call them, Scott?
Aquatic cryptids, I guess.
Aquatic cryptids. There you go.
That would cover, sea monsters and the freshwater creatures.
Yes, that makes sense.
Instead of calling them sea creatures because they're in the lakes too.
Yeah, so they're definitely water cryptids. Or that's. Wow. All right.
Some of them are probably migratory too, go back and forth between fresh and salt water.
So this is something that's always interested me, even as a kid. I've always been interested in, and there are people say that, well, I'm not really interested in sea creatures and things like, well, oceans cover most of the earth. So
yeah, and
you're ignoring a big chunk of the planet you live on.
Yeah, and we haven't explored. I mean, we know more about outer space than we do our own oceans.
Yeah, that's right. So, Scott, do you want to give talk a little bit about yourself? Tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Well, I have been doing field research at Lake Champlain in Vermont since 1992. So, in November, that will make 27 years of hunting for champ. That's what I'm primarily known for. I've been on several documentaries and television programs, and I've spoken at some of these conferences around the country. Are you familiar with the sounds that were recorded in Lake Champlain back in 2003?
I am not. I don't think I. You know what? That might have been. Was that on Discovery Channel? Because I know that they played.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I am. Yes.
It was on the Monster Quest
Monster
episode
Quest.
about champ.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I thought that.
I was on that.
Okay.
That was the first episode of Monster Quest. So anyway. The lady that recorded the underwater sounds, she's a bioacoustician. I worked with her for several years after the Monster Quest episode, and we managed to get a scientific abstract published in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America about it in 2010. Our plan was to do a follow-up paper, but she's kind of incognito at the moment, so hopefully someday we'll get back to that and write a full paper about it. But that is in the scientific literature about those sounds. They're unidentified, but there is a small scientific thing about them in the scientific literature, and I was a co-author on that.
That's some good stuff there.
That was. I remember that episode too.
Yeah,
I've seen every episode of Monster Quest. That's a pretty cool show. And Scott, just to let the audience know, me and Scott met in a group. I was in his Zombie Plesiosaurs Society group, and I had tried to post one of my shows, and he was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "That's a show about zombies." And he's like, "This isn't about zombies, dude. This is about."
That's how the meeting happened.
Yeah, it was kind of like he was like, "I'm trying to keep this, about on track."
Yeah.
about aquatic cryptids.
I was not trying to be mean, but
no,
a lot of people misunderstand the concept. And if you want me to, I'll explain it.
Yes, please let the audience know, because I know this is an area that needs explanation.
As we know, a lot of people think that a lot of cryptids are surviving forms that we know in the fossil record, such as Bigfoot being a possible Gigantopithecus, or Paranthropus. The Loch Ness Monster resembles a plesiosaur, So the concept of zombie taxa in paleontology is an animal that was thought to be extinct but suddenly pops back up in the fossil record like a zombie returning from the dead. So that's why they use that term. And the name of the group is based on that concept rather than the normal definition of what a zombie is. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's, and you actually.
And sometimes, occasionally, people get misunderstand, and obviously you did too. So
Yeah, I thought it was like a paranormal / sea creature, whatever. But then you told me what was going on, and then you told me about your research, and then we started corresponding, and I thought, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so,
well, actually, I have a group out there for people that do believe that these creatures are supernatural. It's a Facebook group called the Ghost Plesiosaur Society.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
The reason I set that one up is I didn't want the paranormal thing infiltrating the main group. I wanted to keep it basically about the idea that these things are just animals. But there are a lot of people that subscribe to, which I guess you'd call it paranormal cryptozoology. And that applies to not only the lake monsters, but Bigfoot and all sorts of other more exotic entities like Dogman and the chupacabra and all that stuff, Mothman. So I kind of set up this side group so that the paranormal people would kind of stay over there and concentrate on that in that group and not infiltrate the biological group, if you understand what I'm saying.
And that's smart, and that's actually cool that you did that.
Yeah. I've actually got a skeptics group, too.
Wow.
And the reason why is we were having so many problems with people just getting angry at these overbearing skeptics trying to, say there's nothing to this, and they were making people mad. And I said, well, look, we're just going to take this whole skeptic thing and put it over here in this group. So you guys can talk, can talk all day long about how Nessie doesn't exist without pissing other people off,
So that's a pretty cool concept. Like you set up the different groups, but I don't think I've ever actually seen another researcher do that. They have different groups.
You have different gangs, I guess, or cliques or whatever you want to call them that have a certain mindset, and you get them all in one place. And the next thing you got people arguing and threads that go on for like 90 posts of people just arguing with each other.
Right.
And it's not, one group's not convincing the other of their position. So it's not like we have completely banned skeptics from the main group. It's just the ones that are more overbearing and just cause arguments all the time. I asked them would you please just carry this over here to this other group, and we won't have any problems.
That makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because
there's actually a fourth group that is just about champ, which is where I concentrate most of my champ research at.
Yeah, I find that interesting. But again, at the same time, you made a very true statement by saying that, one's not going to convince the other unless, the individual.
Well, look at the Bigfoot field. You got people that believe Bigfoot is biological. And then you've got a group over here that's talking about glowing red eyes and Bigfoot coming through portals and stepping out of UFOs and stuff. And it just incenses the other group that just thinks they're just relic hominoids.
Correct.
So there's just really, there's very little constructive things come out of these arguments.
Yeah, the dialogue.
Yeah.
Really.
I mean, if you're just talking at each other rather than with each other, it's pointless.
Definitely. Yeah.
So
there's got to be some.
But the thing is, among all these different groups, I've got people that are in all three groups that manage to go back and forth and discuss, but they understand that, you can respect all three viewpoints. But, at some point, there are some people that are just set in their ways and have made up their mind, and you can't argue with them. You can argue with them, but it's not going to
Correct.
produce anything destructive, you know.
Right. Yeah, they've got their walls set up, and so they're not going to be receptive.
So I think this is the most sensible way to go about it, to where you can cover the whole spectrum of opinions on the subject and avoid all the arguing, you know?
It makes sense. It sounds very rational, very reasonable to me.
Well, I enjoy the Zombie Plesiosaur Society because it has, you have a lot of good posts on there. You post about,
well, you know, it's not just about plesiosaurs. I mean, we've got people in there that think these creatures are giant amphibians, giant eels, prehistoric whales, giant long-necked seals. You know, there's all kinds of theories out there.
What do you think it is, Scott? Like, as far as like Champ itself, what do you think Champ is?
Well, looking at the eyewitness sketches and the best pieces of available video evidence, whatever it is, it looks like a prehistoric marine reptile called a plesiosaur, which was a long-necked marine reptile with flippers.
From the Cretaceous era?
It was, and Jurassic too, that more or less resembled a reptilian sea lion, if you can imagine that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because the eras, I believe, if from memory serves me correctly, it was Triassic, Jurassic, then Cretaceous. Is that right?
Yep.
That's right.
And then you've got about a period of about 60 million years between there and the Ice Age, where after the dinosaurs had died out, where you had all this mammalian evolution going on, then the Ice Age hits and lasts for about 2 million years. And then we're pretty much well up to the last, when the Ice Age ended, about 10,000 years ago, then you've got all of, basically most of human prehistory right there after the ice.
And I think it's very possible that these things can survive, especially in the water. I know that like, okay, you think about the crocodilians, okay?
I mean, those are living reptiles.
They're still around.
Yeah, they're living
and they're
reptiles.
doing very well.
Yeah.
And what's crazy
Absolutely.
is that they began to evolve. I believe they began to evolve in the Triassic era, and then they had a common ancestor. Yep. Yeah, and then they went from there.
They are cousins of the dinosaurs.
Cousins, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a group. They were grouped in a group of reptiles called archosaurs.
Yep.
And that includes all the dinosaurs, all the crocodilians, their ancestors, and the birds as well, because birds are basically
raptors.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Raptors, yeah, that's what they're descended from, is from
well, you can look at them.
and Velociraptor type dinosaurs. Yeah.
I was at work the other day, and there's a lot of birds that land in the courtyard where I sit sometimes and eat lunch. And I look at these grackles, and I was looking at their feet. And they have this weird, and that foot, it looks like if you took that foot, that back
a
toe
chicken's
looks
got
like
a foot
spur.
exactly like a T-Rex.
Yeah, a T-Rex.
You know,
it would be their ancestor.
made on the same plan. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very similar.
I love dinosaurs. When I was a kid, I was like dinosaur crazy.
I've always imagined, a classic dinosaur, it's being like a cross between an alligator and a bird, basically.
Absolutely. That's so cool.
Something to that effect, yeah.
And so you've made this your life's work, your life's passion to.
Well, I've been doing it for a long time.
Studying these things.
Well, Champ,
Yeah, I have no formal degree, but I did do volunteer work at a museum in Philadelphia working with fossils.
Oh, great. That's
and I learned a lot there. That's before I moved to Vermont. I lived in Vermont for 18 years. Then I met my wife and wound up moving to Florida. But I go back every year to Lake Champlain for
research,
usually a month, something like that, to continue my
the
field
research.
work.
Yeah.
So Scott, did you move to Vermont to study that?
Yes.
Wow, that is that is commitment.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, first time I heard of Lake Champlain, I said, I've always been a big fan of the Loch Ness monster phenomena.
You have more commitment than most people. Like, I'm not even committed enough to go to my favorite restaurant and eat. Like, I'm like, you know what? Basis. I like your food, but not enough to come down there and get it. So I'm just gonna have it.
What is your primary cryptid that you research?
Well, that's an easy one. Dogman. And that's because when I was 15 years old, I saw one. I saw one when I was 15.
Call it for what it is, brother. You were almost face to face with one.
Yeah, it was almost face to face with one. In fact, I've taken Sal to the spot where it happened, and we've retraced the steps.
We first checked it out on the map on
the map,
Google Earth.
Google
we
Earth,
checked it out. Yeah, it was after seeing it on the ground, seeing first Google Earth and then seeing it on the ground. It's quite scary. Yeah,
Texas, Taylor, Texas.
Yeah, not too far.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of legends.
I'm not familiar with reports from Texas. I've heard reports from Michigan, from Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That's the main area, but like.
I think that's where the popularity started.
That's where the
Michigan.
popularity started. Yeah, but Texas, we've had these things for a long time, and my great aunt, my tia, she would call them the hombre lobo or the cadejo, which is like she would always tell me that these things were there, and I thought it was just a big joke. I mean, I really just thought it was nonsense.
Somehow tied in with what they call skinwalkers.
That's a question that a lot of people ask, but this thing that I saw just looked like a flesh and blood creature. I mean, it was on all fours. It was in a ditch. It got up, moved across the road, then it came down the alley, and it was on two legs, and it looked very much like a classic werewolf
out of these modern movies.
It looks like a movie werewolf, but it was so big, and there's no way to really compare it though, because when you're standing there, and you're facing it.
Like a bipedal bear with a wolf's head.
Kind of, yeah, very similar. You can almost say that, and a lot of people have
except
different...
the legs.
The legs are more canid, and when you look at this thing, and like I said, I've only seen it once. Like I didn't have some of these people we've talked to over the years, me and Sal.
Yeah,
they have repeat. These things are
like the witness, Ernest.
Ernest is one of them that comes to mind that he talks about, or Seven,
Yeah.
They talk about these things having them on their property for years, and they see them, and they have breeding populations. And to me, it was just like a canine that had learned to walk and evolved that way. That's what it looked like to me. But some people do have...
One thing I wanted to mention to you, there were actually a group of prehistoric animals that were related to both bears and dogs. They called them bear dogs.
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting.
There's a particular one called
Amphicylon. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you might want to check into that.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And there's another explanation, because not what I saw, but the Mason, Texas. South.
Yes.
There were some kids that were shooting fireworks a couple years ago in Mason, Texas, and these two creatures came out of the woods and chased them. Now, there's a lot of woods in Texas. It's pretty much everywhere you go is rural and wooded, so you can run into anything.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids got chased by what we believe were Dinopithecus, the giant baboon. Yes,
yeah.
and that's what I think it was. They were describing, because the way they described it was like the way it shrieked, because I've been to Africa. And I
Did it have a long tail?
Yeah, and it had an elongated tail. They said that the end almost looked like a lion's tail, the way it looked, though. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, well, based on some of those, the mandrills in baboons looks like a dog's face. It's got this long tail.
That's right.
Yeah, we discussed that in a previous episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we talked about that, and we're thinking that could be something,
a remnant.
And that would have been like with the Pleistocene era, I believe.
Pleistocene or Pleistocene?
Yeah.
Before the Ice Age.
Before the Ice Age. Yeah, and they would have gone extinct. But then recently we did a show about hyenas.
Or hyena men or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you want to call them, that people were seeing here in Texas, in particular West Texas, toward your neck of the woods.
Yeah, more prevalent.
Are you talking about the blue dogs? The
No. That's what people, the blue dog
like
that people commonly mistake for the chupacabra, which is not.
It's like a mutant coyote.
But yeah, I've heard it called both names. Supposedly it's a hybrid of some kind of dog and a Mexican wolf.
A Mexican hairless.
Yeah, a Mexican hairless. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's canid in nature. Many people call it. Why they call it the chupacabra is beyond me, because the origin of that particular legend started in Puerto Rico.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know it's a totally different.
Yeah, it was a totally looking. Yeah, it was like it was like a reptilian type creature.
Mm-hmm.
That was reported in Puerto Rico.
Texas is definitely a canid of some sort.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but they've actually got a carcass and some DNA of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Scott. There was somebody who had given us a story, and we did it in an episode way back. It was on what we called Paranormal Potluck, And when I use the word paranormal, a lot of people just assume that paranormal is like ghosts, but I use it as in the term that it's not normal.
Yes.
It's just
Unexplained.
unexplained. There you go. It's
Unexplained.
beyond the norm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's paranormal, you know. So one of the things that we did a paranormal potluck, and there was someone that sent us a story. They were in Galveston, off the coast of Galveston, and they were, I guess, trying to see dolphins or something.
Yeah, they were out on a fishing boat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on a boat, but there was like a dolphin tour or something like that, I believe. I think that's what it was.
Something to that effect.
Something
yes.
to that effect. And this creature, you want to describe it?
That creature was supposedly, it wasn't a dolphin, and it was
Reptilian looking.
reptilian looking. You know, it was so hard when they said reptilian looking. It's kind of, you just, your mind starts to wonder if you don't get specifics on what it looked like.
Does the Trinity River flow into Galveston?
I don't think so.
Well, pretty much every river in
Flows
one
into
form
the
or another,
ocean,
pours into the Gulf of Mexico out there.
Well,
but they were.
you know what an alligator gar is?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Oh yeah, we
absolutely,
grew up
yeah.
with them around here. Yeah, it was.
They look like a prehistoric marine reptile. They
Yes.
look like a mosasaur almost.
Yes.
Very nasty looking
And they
creature.
can get 8 feet long, yeah. So I think a lot of sightings, and they go into salt water occasionally. So
Yes, sir.
that would be a great candidate for monster.
Oh yes, sea monsters. They are.
Right.
I've never heard of them. You know, a lot. Hardly. I can't really say even ever that they've made it out into the
biggest
salt water.
ones are caught right there in the Trinity River in Texas.
Now I believe it.
I mean, they catch little hawks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard of plenty spearfishers or guys. Excuse me, bow
A lot
fishermen.
of people boat fish, yeah, with compound bows.
Yeah, the biggest one I saw in a magazine, I think it was probably, minus the snout, but basically from where I guess you could say the face starts and the face stops and the snout begins, from that point all the way back down to the tip of its tail was over 6 feet long. And so with the snout would have made it 8 foot long or better. That's the biggest one I ever saw.
There's a picture of one that they were debating about
Mm-hmm.
that was caught somewhere in Louisiana back in like 1967, 68.
Mm-hmm.
They think may have been 12 feet long.
Well,
I mean, this
I
thing
believe
was
it.
hard.
That's
I
a
believe.
monster.
There's a photograph of it. Yeah.
I believe
That's
it.
scary to know that you're swimming around in the river and there's things like that just right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Razor sharp teeth.
Mm-hmm.
So explain to me what this thing looked like. The thing in Galveston.
Well, I guess I'll tell you. It was like they said it was what, 8 feet long. I think
8,
it was
9
like,
feet,
8 or
something like
9
that.
feet long, and it was like that the body looked smooth, but not like it had scales, but it wasn't like they weren't real pronounced.
It kind of reminded them of a sea turtle.
Yeah,
kind
almost
of.
like a sea turtle, and it had an elongated neck, but not elongated like the plesiosaur.
Right.
And they the way that they were describing, and she talked to us and like she said that it was like almost like a turtle without a shell, because it had flippers,
Mm-hmm.
and then it had like little claws, but it had a long skinny head, and they said that it had a weird looking snout and big teeth, and the way that they described the head sounded like a gator type head. The head sounded gator-like, but then the body did not match that at all. The body matched a snapping turtle body. And when we corresponded back and forth, I did throw out the mosasaur. And I was like, do you know, are you familiar with that? And this was after we'd already done the show, but we talked, we corresponded with her and her husband, and they told us that when they went and looked, and they were like, oh my gosh, that's what it looked like.
Mm-hmm.
And they told us that they believed that was the closest description that they could come was to a mosasaur.
Well, there were short-necked plesiosaurs that looked like that, too.
They
called
could have been.
plesiosaurs.
Uh-huh.
And there were also prehistoric marine crocodiles with flippers.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Old Metriorhynchids, so any of those would seem to fit the bill, So who knows?
Well, you want to hear the kicker on that one, Scott?
Yeah, go ahead.
When they were out on that boat, they said the boat captain or the helper, the mate, the first mate, whatever. That I think one of them, or no, it was the captain. The captain, after they reported it, they saw it, they looked at it, and obviously the captain and his little first mate saw this. They looked over and asked the captain about this, and the captain looked at him and they said, "Did you see that?" Yeah. He goes, captain looked at him and said, "Yeah, that's a small one."
Yeah.
He told him
they've seen them before.
Well, there was a famous sea serpent sighting off Galveston in like 1872, but the creature was that they described in that. There's a drawing of it if you look online. It looks like a snake with dorsal fin all over it, like a giant snake with dorsal fin.
There's another story that I read, Scott, and I wanted to ask you about this one because you seem to know a lot about these sightings. There was a famous story, I think it was, and I want to say near Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if that's correct.
In Pensacola, where the teenagers were in the raft and got attacked.
Oh my gosh! Yes,
yeah.
You got it.
I actually know the son of the survivor, the only survivor. I'm friends with his son on Facebook. Yeah, that happened in 1962.
62. Okay, there you go. I knew it was something like that. Can you tell the audience that story?
Yeah. Well, essentially, these 3 or 4, I believe it was 4 of them, teenagers were going to dive on a shipwreck. The ship, the Philadelphia, I think it is, off the coast of Pensacola, and they went out in a raft, allegedly got caught in a storm, and then this plesiosaurish-looking sea monster come up under the raft, and they all panicked, and most of them were either drowned or possibly attacked. There was a lot of confusion, but only one guy survived and made it ashore. And the part about the drowning and all that, and the ones that died, that's all fact. But about 3 years later, the only survivor, Edward Brian McCleary, turned around and wrote an article for Fate magazine claiming that they were attacked by this plesiosaurus-looking sea monster with an 8-foot neck. And he made a drawing of it, too. And he passed away, but I was able to make contact with his son, who lives in Jacksonville, Florida now. And I talk to him on a regular basis, and he's written several books. But, yeah, that's, basically it comes down to the claim of the one guy that survived the drowning and the accident.
Well, what do you think it was, Scott?
Well, if his drawing is accurate, it looks like a plesiosaur.
And in your opinion, like, you firmly believe that these creatures are still there, like they still exist?
Well, we've yet to have confirmation completely 100% of a verified body to verify that, but I suspect that they are. I have a strong hunch that they are, but we're not there yet. The closest we've come so far is this carcass that was pulled up back in the 1970s by Japanese
fishermen. I've seen the picture.
I'm sure you've seen the pictures of that. That's the name of the ship was called the Zuyo Maru. That's a Japanese name, and the carcass is generally referred to as either the New Zealand monster because it was pulled up off the coast of New Zealand, or the Zuyo Maru carcass.
Okay.
So there was a lot of debate about that, and what has caused so much confusion about that particular case is the fact that there is a type of large shark called the basking shark.
Yeah.
Okay, when the basking shark dies, parts of its body fall off the carcass as it is floating around at sea and rots. And what happens is the jaws fall away, and it leaves the top part of the skull, which looks like a small head on a long neck going back to where the front fins are. So this has happened on more than one occasion where people would find a carcass that looked like a plesiosaur, and initially that's what they thought it was. Then they got to studying it. The scientists came and looked at it and studied the vertebrae and the cranium and said, no, this is a mutilated basking shark carcass. So there's a lot of evidence that that carcass that was pulled up off New Zealand was nothing more than another mutilated basking shark carcass. But there were a small handful of scientists that studied the evidence and said that based on the body measurements that were taken of the carcass that it doesn't match the body proportions of a basking shark, and that it could have been a reptile, a plesiosaurish or turtleish-looking reptile that we don't know about, that hasn't been confirmed by science. Unfortunately, the body was thrown back into the sea with a plan to go back and retrieve it. They didn't want to contaminate the fish that were already on the boat that they had caught. They sent boats back to try to retrieve the carcass where they dropped it and couldn't find it. So what they came back with were a bunch of measurements and sketches, 5 photographs, and about 40 pieces of tissue that were cut from one of the fins. Those were submitted to biochemical analysis and came back very similar to the fin fibers of a basking shark. So based on that, a lot of people said, well, it obviously was a basking shark, but there was some question about the biochemical analysis too. So some people hold out and say that, yes, it could have been a reptile. So.
The picture that I remember, and I've seen that picture since I was a kid, it has 4 flippers from what I remember. It doesn't look like,
basking sharks have a set of what they call pelvic fins that are in the same position as an animal with 4 legs would have a set of back flippers in. So it's ambiguous, but that's as close as we've got to confirmation. So it's one of those up in the air cases, and until somebody finds a piece that may be left somewhere laying around in a museum somewhere and submits it to DNA technology, which didn't exist back in 1977, we'll never know for sure. There's always that possibility.
I find it really interesting that we have so many people out there that are skeptical of all these giant sea cryptids, water cryptids out there in our vast oceans, and as well as in our large bodies of water that we have inland.
Yeah.
And when you...
Well, one thing you don't hear much about is the discovery of new species in fresh water.
Oh, no, you don't.
Big animals, but it does happen.
Oh, yes. Well,
but it usually happens in places like in warm climates, like in
Southeast Asia,
in the river systems of Asia, and in South America. But they occasionally find a new species of river dolphin or shark, or they discovered a giant manta ray living in fresh water in Thailand. So you never know.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that just due to the fact that we rediscovered I hope I'm saying the word right, coelacanth,
yes.
That alone for me is more than enough reason to say when people disregard the sightings of eyewitnesses, when they disregard them and throw them out the window, to me the coelacanth is a prime example. No, it can't be out of the question.
It's the gold standard of prehistoric survivors.
Yes.
It's supposed to have been extinct for 80 million years, which is 15 million years before the dinosaurs and plesiosaurs went extinct.
Exactly. So that
and
says
not
a
only
lot.
did they find it was still alive, 60 years later they found a completely unknown population in Indonesia.
Yes.
So you've got not just one surviving population, you've got 2, and they're different species, and they've been separated according to the DNA comparisons by 5 million years, something like that. So they, it's just amazing.
That's a good bit of information right there, because we did discuss about the 2 different places, and from the first report I got, supposedly it was somewhere around Borneo that they caught the coelacanth after it was supposed to be
South Africa.
Oh, well, yeah, and the school of South
Africa was the first place.
Yeah, well, they eventually discovered that the one in Madagascar was a stray that had swam up a river, but the population that it came from was in the Comoros, which is a group of islands near Madagascar.
Wow.
And recently they discovered the cherry, what is it, the shark? I can't remember the name of the shark. There was a type of shark.
Megamouth?
No, there was a type of shark it's in the bull shark family, because bull sharks live in freshwater and saltwater.
Yeah,
there
they
are
do.
still people to this day
That don't believe that.
who don't believe that there are sharks in rivers, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, there are. The
Oh,
Zambezi
absolutely.
River the shark is named
They're
after
found.
that.
They're found in Zambezi
The
River,
Zambezi, yeah.
in Lake Nicaragua.
Oh,
They
Lake
believe
Nicaragua
the
is
attack.
full of it.
Yeah, they believe the attacks in 1916 that were the inspiration for
Jaws,
Yeah.
were probably
a bull shark.
that swam up the river.
Yeah.
The Matawan River in New Jersey was one of the attacks.
Yes, that one is the one I was about to say.
That's right.
I was about to mention that one. Yeah, I find that interesting because, again, the mouth of the Chagres River that's out, on the east coast of Panama, the mouth of the Chagres has the highest concentration in the world of hammerhead sharks. You think some of them don't make it up into the brackish water, possibly into the fresh water? I would say yes, they probably do.
Bull sharks, and they do what they do because they can dominate an ecosystem. Unless, and now here's the trump card, if there are crocodiles in that river, then bull sharks will get eaten because they're actually saying now that they can.
Pictures of alligators and crocodiles eating bull sharks.
Bull sharks, yeah,
bringing them up on the beach.
Bull shark pups are they gain a healthy fear of the crocodiles that they live around, and they actually are using crocodile pheromone as a deterrent for bull sharks. The problem is that you could attract crocodiles. so you got to pick your poison. You're going to attract a male crocodile to come at you, or you want a bull shark.
A horny one too.
Yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax. But they were like, oh, we've come up with a repellent now for a bull shark, at least, because all the sharks are so different. They can't come up with one particular repellent that will work as universal. That's the problem. What would repel one will attract another much more.
Well, touching on this idea of plesiosaurs and the coelacanths and all this stuff, one thing most people don't realize is that there is evidence now, abundant evidence in the fossil record, that plesiosaurs did not come ashore to lay eggs like a turtle. They gave live birth in the water like a whale.
Wow.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So if there were plesiosaurs around now, they wouldn't be dragging themselves up on the beach to lay eggs. They would be giving birth out at sea. And mosasaurs gave live birth too. So.
And didn't reptiles I know that the zeuglodons they were whales, yeah, they have a common ancestor though. I know that Alatharius wasn't it the sort of in between misfit that was the ancestor of mammals and reptiles. It was kind of like both.
Well, there were the rhapsids are considered to be the ancestors of all mammals, and they were reptilian-looking creatures. And then at a certain point, midway in their evolution, they looked like a cross between a dog and a Komodo dragon. So if you can imagine a Komodo dragon with whiskers and hair, that's what these things look like.
Very weird.
Interesting.
But this happened way back, even before the dinosaurs. Because by the time the dinosaurs came along, you actually had full-blown little rat-like mammals. So essentially what happened was the general theory is that the extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs also affected the marine reptiles and wiped out supposedly the mosasaurs and the plesiosaurs and all that. From you know the story about the asteroid landing down in Mexico. Okay, that's supposedly the catalyst for all this. Well, anyway, supposedly after about 2 or 3 billion years after this major extinction, a bunch of little doggish-looking animals went down to the sea to start eating fish, and over the course of 10, 15 million years, they grow into whales. And Zeuglodon is one of the intermediate forms. It's the closest thing that the mammals have ever produced to a sea serpent.
What about Basilosaurus, though?
Well, Basilosaurus is Zeuglodon, same animal.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that is a Zeuglodon. My bad. I was just about to say.
It's the same thing.
They're part of that.
The reason why it's called Basilosaurus and Zeuglodon is 2 different scientists gave it a different name.
But it was the same creature.
Yeah. But
But because of the fact that it's known by two different names, they still argue
I
to this
see.
day about which one takes precedent if it's should be
Because I've seen them
Basilosaurus
drawn
zygolodon.
differently. That was the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like I've seen drawings of them.
Well, there are relatives of.
Hello?
Are you with us?
Yeah.
Oh,
There
okay.
you go.
Sorry. No. I just find it a little. When you mentioned that the two scientists and one saying it's this name, the other one saying that's the name, and each side's got their own. I'm thinking potato. It's the same creature.
Yeah, it's the same creature. Yeah, but there were actually two different species of Basilosaurus. There was one in Egypt that had a smaller head than the North American.
That's
one.
what I'm thinking of, because I thought that's where the
Maybe that's what you're thinking of there. Is that the body's the same, but the head size is different.
Well, that's like the story
The one
of the.
from Egypt, which is called Basilosaurus isis, had a much smaller, compact head.
Mhm.
So what story
Yeah.
was that, Wolf, you were going to say?
Well, like the guy who created Dr. Pepper, and his brother wanted to call it Dr. Piper, so he killed that guy and buried him under his house, and then it became
Oh,
Dr.
really?
Pepper.
I never heard
I'm just
this
making
story.
that up. I'm just like,
That's analogy. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, no one will ever know that his brother wanted to call it Dr. Piper.
Well,
Yeah.
it's really an interesting story because let me explain it to you. The guy that found the first Basilosaurus was a paleontologist named Richard Harlan. This was in 1834. And when he initially found it, he thought it was a marine reptile and named it Basilosaurus. But then another paleontologist named Richard Owen over in England looked at Harlan's fossils and looked at the teeth and said, no, this animal is a mammal. It's got rooted teeth like a mammal, unlike a reptile, so therefore it must be a primitive whale. And he renamed it Zygolodon. So that's why there's the confusion. Some people say, well, Richard Harlan named it first, even though it's a mammal. He named it Basilosaurus. So some people say, well, that name takes precedent. And then other people say, well, no, Richard Owen was right. It was a mammal, and he renamed it Zygolodon. So that's where the confusion comes in.
Right, but it's essentially the same creature, just different
Yeah,
species.
it's the same animal. It's just
Different.
called by two different names.
Yeah.
But that's why a lot of people get mixed up and, think, well, is Basilosaurus a Zygolodon or is Zygolodon Basilosaurus? It is both.
And I'm glad you clarified that, because I would have spent the rest of my life
it's
thinking
just
they were two
like,
different things.
Some people
Yeah.
prefer to use the term Zygolodon, but they're talking about the same animal. It's elongated snake-like whale that got 70 feet long with a head like a crocodile.
And because you studied so much of these aquatic reptilians, that these creatures don't stop growing, like reptiles in general don't. But like the aquatic reptiles, like the crocodile,
If you
it's
feed
true
it,
that they will grow for as long.
They have extremely long lives, too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that's why Gustav, I don't know if you've heard of him.
Oh, yeah, the killer crocodile in
Mhm.
Africa. Yeah, of course. Scary.
What do you know about that?
Well, I've seen several documentaries on it, and there was a fiction movie called Primeval that was made about it, too. But some of the video footage of him, he's a Nile crocodile, just incredible, just scary.
How big is he? They say he's 30 feet long.
Oh, I would think probably more along the lines of 20.
Yeah.
21
I
maybe.
think when they say he's 30,
But
they're
that's
just
huge. I mean,
exaggerating.
We've got a 16-foot alligator on a golf course about 20 minutes from where I live at.
Wow.
You remember the video that was the viral video of the guys on the golf course?
Oh, and then they had yeah.
They're watching the fight.
Yeah, that's Buffalo Creek Golf Course. That's 20 minutes from where I live.
Yeah,
Wow.
and the alligator's just like, he's just there. Like,
Well, they were
Yeah,
fighting.
there's a name for him. I'm trying to think of what they call him. Chubbs. That's what they call him.
yeah.
Chubbs. Chubbs.
Oh, now this
If you
wasn't the
go on,
one. This wasn't the one where it was the two alligators fighting while the guys on the golf course. Was it?
No. I've seen that one. No, I think that was in North Carolina.
Oh.
But no, this humongous. It looks like something out of Jurassic Park.
Oh man.
That is literally 20 minutes from my house. And I tried to get the golf course to let me go over there and look for him, and they wouldn't let me do it.
Oh, man. Scott, I'm going to ask you a question. Does it burn you like it burns me to hear Jurassic Park. I can't stand that term. I keep wanting to yell at these people. This is not Jurassic animals. You know,
That's right.
It's not.
Well, crocodiles were around during the Jurassic, but they're around now too. So.
They're showing, but they're always showing like the Triceratops. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's Cretaceous, isn't it?
That's Cretaceous. Yes.
And then they're showing
Triceratops
that.
is one of the last of the dinosaurs that they know about. One of the latest types.
Oh, the Triceratops.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now,
they're right there right below where the extinction happened.
And T-Rex was too, right? I mean, wasn't that Cretaceous too?
Yeah, they were among the last dinosaurs, and some hadrosaurs were among the last ones.
I was so mad whenever I went to that and then my friends were. I was like a teenager or something, and I kept saying, "This is Cretaceous," and like, "Shut up," you know? Cause
like, you know why they said Jurassic Park, right?
I was ruining it.
You know why Jurassic Park? They said that because it rolls right off
the tongue. Jurassic.
Yeah.
Well, you know how many times I'll be watching a documentary about the Loch Ness Monster or marine reptiles, and they'll call it a sea dinosaur. Dinosaurs were a specific group of land reptiles that didn't live in the sea. The closest you're going to get to an aquatic dinosaur is Spinosaurus.
Oh, yeah. Spinosaurus.
But it still had feet with legs.
Yeah.
It did eat fish.
Right. It spent a lot of time in the water.
Reptile, but mosasaurs were not dinosaurs. They were lizards. They're actually cousins of the living Komodo dragons and monitor lizards.
Oh, nice. Interesting. That's good to know.
So mosasaurs were definitely lizards. Plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs, the dolphin-looking marine reptiles, they're not sure about where they fall in the classification. They're part of a group, a larger group that they call the Sauropterygians, but they're not sure where exactly they fall in. They think they're probably a third branch apart from the lizards and snakes, which are their own branch, and the archosaurs, which we were talking about earlier, which includes all the dinosaurs, crocodiles, and birds. And turtles may be their own branch, too. And then some people think that maybe the plesiosaurs, the turtles, and the ichthyosaurs all share a common ancestor and may be related, but they're not 100% sure yet. So it's a mess.
Well, it's interesting because somebody was talking to me the other day about how dangerous the world would be for a human to have lived in the Triassic, the Cretaceous. And I'm like, imagine as dangerous as it was on land, you would have died instantly in the ocean because it was just like absolutely everything would eat you. Everything.
The bug bites would probably kill you.
Oh my gosh.
You know, think about, you've heard about horse flies and deer flies. Imagine dinosaur flies. How bad they would be.
Well, and you look at these centipedes that I was reading about the centipedes that were around. They were 3 foot. They were 3 foot wide, 6 foot long. You're like that would just eat a person. I mean, like it would just be like nothing.
Probably, yeah. They got you down on the ground,
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
Kill you. I mean, the spiders were ridiculous.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And another thing too, people don't realize that grass didn't exist back then. People don't know that. That's a very
flowers either. Flowers
they didn't exist. It was all ferns.
You had like ferns, and I think they were pine trees because they're kind of related to those.
But no grass.
So where did all the grass come from?
Grass came from, I was like, what is it, 100 to 200,000 years ago? Is that correct?
Well, you had early mammals that were kind of like cows that ate grass back millions of years ago. So I would think sometime not too long after the dinosaur extinction.
Right. I'm thinking there were some grasses out there.
There were grass, but not the way we know it. Like they didn't have Bermuda grass and carpet grass and all that.
You had a bunch of plant-eating dinosaurs that ate
leaves.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that...
sauropods?
Sauropods were vegetarians.
That's what they were.
That the ceratopsians were too, and the hadrosaurs, the duck-billed dinosaurs, they were vegetarians. Yeah,
that's interesting. I've always thought that if you had, Tyrannosaurus rexes, Allosaurus, and I've heard that the Allosaurus was bigger than the T-Rex.
No, it wasn't, and it predated T-Rex.
Right.
Am I correct on that?
It had, and it had 3 fingers as opposed to 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Well,
they're
The
not
T-Rex
even related.
Had 2 fingers. Well, no, they're related, but they're not very closely.
Yeah,
Right.
not very closely related.
Okay.
I should just
I
clarify
would,
that.
Yeah.
But as I was going with my thought, you'd think if any of these creatures were to have been on a savanna, and in order for them to quote unquote stay alive and sustain themselves, there had to be a quote unquote, they'd had to have some, snacks out there in the food aisle, i.e., some type of grazing type animals that ate the plants on the savanna,
Yeah.
and that was their meal. So I just find it really interesting.
That's why the asteroid impact just completely destroyed their world. Is that the ejecta or dust cloud that came up from the impact blocked the sunlight out for a long time, and this destroyed the whole plant photosynthesis web, which made you got a plankton in the ocean that are plants that live on sunlight too. So the stuff that ate the little fish that ate the phytoplankton in the sea died, and then the marine reptiles that ate them died, and then the bigger marine reptiles that ate the smaller marine reptiles died.
It was just a domino effect.
The chain reaction, and the same thing happened on land too.
Now, here's a question for you, Scott. Being that I guess you could say the current popular theory right now that's accepted is that the meteor hit, caused this upheaval all over the planet. I could see the land animals being affected terribly to the point of extinction completely, every last one of them.
Yeah.
But now when you think about the oceans where some of these creatures live deep, deep down, I'm one of those people that said that's going to be hard to be touched when you have
There are food chains in the ocean that are fed by underwater thermal vents.
Right.
That are completely distinct from the ones that are connected by photosynthesis from sunlight.
Right.
So there are entire food chains that exist in the deep ocean around hydrothermal vents that would not have been affected by what was going on the surface. However, any marine reptile would most likely have to come up for air, so they would have been affected by that problem. But we know that some sea turtles survived across the extinction, and certain species of sharks did. So I'm of the opinion, there's some people that cherry pick the data. A plesiosaur was an animal just like a sea turtle or a shark. I mean, dinosaurs were not monsters, they were animals. So what are the odds that just the dinosaurs were completely wiped out and that none of them made it across that extinction boundary? It's just like, it's not like, what I'm trying to say here is like a plesiosaur didn't have some kind of special lottery that said, okay, you've got to go extinct, but the sea turtle over here lives.
Yeah.
They give it a pink slip.
So, now they may have been completely devastated with a very small handful of ones that did manage to survive. And this small population that has managed to hang on may have hung on for millions and millions of years. They may still be around and may still be seen once in a blue moon. And there's your sea monsters. And then maybe once in a blue moon, some of them swim up rivers into a lake, and there's your lake monster. But we don't have the concrete proof yet. All we've got is soft data. We've got a bunch of impressive
anecdotal evidence,
eyewitness, testimonial, anecdotal evidence. Which, if you based it on eyewitness testimony in a court of law, it would probably be proven. But it doesn't work that way in biology. You've got to have a type specimen.
Yes, you got to have the hard.
Got to have a bone or a piece of skin or something to get it into the biology books, and we're not there yet.
Well, Scott, I hope that all of it still exists.
I do too.
Just not around me when I'm in the water anywhere around the water.
Same here.
But when I'm not around, then I hope it exists really hardcore.
I'm a firm believer that that there are remnant plesiosaurs out there. I'm a firm believer that as long as they're able to sustain themselves, whether, for all we know, they do dive deep and stay down there for a long time. For all we know,
that's what I think. If Champ is real, the only place that it's got to hide to be this elusive and be real is in the deep water.
Yeah, and that's
same
what
with the
I
Loch
think.
Ness monster. It's if it was hanging around the shallows, we would have found it already.
Oh yeah, we'd have seen it. Many people would have seen it time and time again, and they would have filmed it. And
there's one thing I wanted to ask you, Scott. Now I wanted to know your opinion on this. There was a great white shark that had been tagged, and that had dove.
This was off the coast of East Africa, wasn't it? Somewhere around there, the eastern side of South Africa.
Was it in South Africa?
Somewhere around there, yeah. Or was it New Zealand?
I thought it was in the trench. Oh, yeah, I think it was in the trench off of South Africa, I believe.
Somewhere.
It disappeared, and they recovered the
tag.
The tag. And, yes.
Now, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my friend Max Hawthorne, who writes marine terror books, kind of along the lines of Jaws and the stuff that Steve Alton writes, has done a lot of research into this. And he was of the opinion that it was probably some kind of a giant
sea turtle,
predatory turtle that we don't know about.
That's what I heard. I read that.
But now,
and that's
the
crazy.
temperature range of the animal that supposedly destroyed this great white shark overlaps what they believe the body temperature was of like leatherback turtles, which are partially warm-blooded, and possibly mosasaurs as well. So there's been some speculation that it could have been a mosasaur. So I don't know, but it seems like the body temperature of whatever killed this great white is higher than what you would expect from a great white.
From another one. That's right.
They
were saying initially it was like the megalodon. The big daddy that grabbed it, snatched it, and took it down. Sharks are cannibals.
They think that megalodon. Now, there's a recent paper just published, like last week, that they think that megalodon was probably around 50 feet long, and that's about twice the size of a really big great white.
Yeah, and I think if megalodon existed, we would be seeing evidence of it from whales being just obliterated.
Yeah, they fed on marine mammals, but that doesn't rule out, there could be some kind of giant shark with a somewhat different
makeup
ecology
that
stays down in the deep water and feeds on giant squids, and maybe once in a blue moon comes to the surface.
Well, because great whites do dive down there, and people think that great whites are the apex predator in the ocean, and they're not. It's it's orcas.
The orcas, the killer whales.
Orcas pretty much.
Well, the orcas, I've seen several videos of orcas just demolishing a great white.
No, they'll kill them. I mean, they got
bigger brains, and they hunt in packs, and they're bigger than them.
The large males get up to 35 feet, and the great whites about 20. And the way that they do it is pretty crazy. Like they'll flip them over, and put them into like
the hypnosis or something.
Yeah, it's like a hypnosis. They call it something. I can't remember what it's called. But they'll flip them over. And
now, if I remember right, they think that the body temperature of whatever it was that killed that great white was somewhere around 80 degrees body temperature, and that would kind of overlap with what they know about these partially warm-blooded marine reptiles from the age of the dinosaurs, and with leatherback turtles. So,
whenever the killer whales will enter in an area, like near the Farallon Islands, they were doing a lot of research there. The killer whales just decided to move in and start killing the seals, and the great whites were like, "Oh, okay, see you later." So they just all left. So the great white researchers were kind of left with.
They were bummed out.
They had nothing because the killer whales decided to just take up residence there for a while
and run off the sharks.
And it ran off the great whites, which I guess is good if you're, not into great whites. But if you're a seal, it doesn't matter. You're going to get eaten either way.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen the documentary Blackfish, right?
No, I have not, but I know what that is. It's all about the killer whale in captivity, I believe.
That killed several people.
Yeah, it's a killer. That's why they call it a killer. Well, but they're not even whales, though. They're porpoises, technically.
They're giant porpoises.
Giant porpoises. And smart as whip, but they are just,
I said that as far as the killing of those people by those orcas in captivity, I'm of the opinion that they did something to irritate it, so it just lashed out. Yeah,
well, they think that the theory is that Killicum, the one that killed all these people, was basically the killer whale version of a psychopath. It had mental problems.
Think of the trauma.
It's dead now. It died, I think, of natural causes.
Right.
Well, there's psychos in the animal kingdom, just like there are in. I can tell you this: my buddy used to raise mastiffs, and he had a litter, and there was one in particular in that litter. We named him Napoleon, and because he was small, but when he got bigger, he was bigger than the other. It was weird how he grew. Him. Yeah, and he would attack the mates his
siblings.
Pack mates, like his siblings, and then he would bully subsequent litters too, and eventually he had to get rid of him because he was just like a psycho. He was a psychopath. Like he would be really cool, nothing was going on, and then he'd try to bite you, and there was no reason for it at all. And you're like, what is wrong with this dog? And so. I believe that you get that in all animals. There is an element there of psychopathy or whatever you want to call it that can take root. And like I know that I read an article about in Texas Monthly like years ago. It was in Big Bend National Park where they were finding female mountain lions that had been killed and they had been bitten. It turned out it was a male mountain lion that was killing female mountain lions for no reason. He was just doing it. And when they finally caught this cat, they found out that his brain was messed up. Like he had something wrong with his head. Like he had like, and so he was like, he was like a serial killer. Literally, he killed 6 females.
It was like his brain had atrophied or something.
Yeah, something was wrong with him, and so he was. But it made him
just kill him
instead of mating them. He would. Because they would come into heat, and so they would seek him out, and then he would murder them instead of mating with them. It was bizarre, and so when you read about that, you're thinking, "Wow, that's crazy." And it happens in the animal kingdom just like it does in
with people. Yes,
with people. Absolutely.
I believe that.
It's nuts.
And that's all the time we have for this first of a 2-part episode with Scott Mardis. He brings to the table some fascinating information, and he's going to keep doing so again next week. And until then, y'all don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, have a good night.